Hey again, it's Dawn. So I just wanted to share a bit of my own experience this week, and I'm feeling called. I thought about painting or writing. I feel like if I wrote right now, I would literally write like 5 chapters of a new book, and I don't really need to be starting a new project at the moment. Um, so I'm going to avoid writing until I can be more succinct. And I believe that if I just stay with my own experience here, that might be helpful to some out there. And I also, as I'm sharing my own experience and walking through this, what I want to do is encourage you um, to really honor whatever your experience is, whether you are male or female, whether you are a Democrat or Republican, whether you have been sexually assaulted or you can't even uh, identify or associate with anything that some victims of sexual assault say, whether you believe this person or that person, or whether you believe them both, or whether you believe neither of them. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whether you are a spiritual person or a religious person, or whether you don't ascribe to any particular faith tradition or belief in God, even, whoever you are, this is an opportunity for all of us to return to the whole of who we are, to honor who we are, where we are, as we are, and to really, as much as we are able to do, and give yourself time here, but to honor all others in the process. I'm going to talk about that in just a sec. So I truly believe that when we allow ourselves to devolve into sort of it's this way or it's that way, and you must believe this, and why can't they see that? That is not a way forward. It's only leading to the same sort of ping pong type back and forth reality that's about, essentially polarity, and it's maintaining that separateness. Now, I want to say right off the bat, I am a big believer in allowing everyone to have their own perspective, and to own that fully, to speak it. I am a big believer in freedom of speech, and I'm also a big believer in the ability, full expression, living in full expression, which I talk about all the time. That's what life is, and that is, to me, why who we are at our core, and it's also who we have come to be and what we have come to experience and why we are here. It is for life and life to the full, and that can mean different things for different people. And I do believe a part of living in full expression is the ability to express what you are seeing or feeling or experiencing as you choose in any given moment, as long as it doesn't infringe, obviously, on others' rights. And also to know that there's a freedom there, and that your perspective can change and shift. And that because you are expressing one thing does not mean that there is not ample room for others to express a different thing. So I really believe that that's critical for us, not only in terms of American democracy, or the republic, or whatever you want to call it, which, yeah, that's the big loser here, in my opinion. But in any case, there is that ideal and that hope, and that is what freedom comes from choosing now, and from the capacity to choose and choose again. This is who we are, and so I just want to share a bit about my experience, though, because I believe we're always making twin journeys. The journey back to sacred wholeness, that the act of radical reclamation of the whole of who we are, and not leaving pieces of us behind. That does not mean not leaving things that have happened behind, or not leaving things that were based on a false foundation or a faulty foundation behind. But it does mean reclaiming what matters most, your essential self, your essential journey, your essential truth, whatever that is for you, what matters most to you. And so it's important, I think, that we all walk through any, given circumstance that or drama that's playing out on the bigger stage, and a phenomenon such as the one that continues in our world right now. Well, phenomenon is not the right word, is it? Several interrelated movements and awarenesses and realizations. So the journey to sacred wholeness and the journey to soulful transformation, which is all about the radiant realization of who you are. So the absolute joy in knowing that you have come to experience life and to express fully those things that feel important for you to express. And so I personally have been on, we're always on those two journeys are happening simultaneous at all times. And so my journey to sacred wholeness, as some of you know, was a 3 decades long, well, it continues, but a 3 decades long, kind of journey back to reclaiming the whole of who I am from a very fragmented and disintegrated experience of life and of myself and of other people. And so I come at that from this perspective. I also, for those of you who haven't read that book or don't know, I did have a childhood experience when I was 3 and 4 of being molested by a male family member who was older, who I trusted, and that was perhaps the beginning of the fragmentation for me. I was sexually assaulted when I was 13 in a public place, and I did speak about it to a trusted individual who told me that I must be lying and that it could not, what I said happened could not have possibly happened in a public place. I did have a few friends who didn't see everything that happened, but saw a portion and did believe me, and were there from their limited ability to be there when they were 13, but everybody was terrified. And so as a result, I was isolated, and so I was not believed, and I didn't get the emotional support or physical help and other things that every person is deserving of. And it took me many, 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 many years. Actually, I have never spoken about what happened to me when I was 13. I may have alluded to it in my Sacred Wholeness book, I'm not sure, but I've actually never spoken about it, and I wouldn't be speaking about it now, except I want to make a point, and the only way I think to do so is to share my own experience here. So the point is this: we're all on that journey, whoever you are. If you have been victimized, if you have been the one doing the victimization, or a perpetrator, if you, whoever you are, we all are making that journey back to wholeness, or we are standing in the way of it by continuing patterns of coping or a behavior or beliefs that are entrenched in us, and we're holding on to those in order to block that full reclamation. And so we are stunted in our growth when that happens. And so because we're all on our own journey, and we all have different experiences, and there are many women out there like me who have experienced at some point in their life, and that wasn't the end for me, but those were the two most pivotal when I was very young, and then there were a couple of other things that occurred in my life at a later date. But so we all come from to any given circumstance with our own experience, baggage, feelings, emotions, and one of the things that happens when there's something like this is we oversimplify. We want to take sides. Most people naturally want to, defend or go in the defensive or go on the offensive, or basically, say it's this way or it's that way. I believe this person, I believe that person, I believe both people, I believe no people, whatever. We want to just, and I'm no exception to that. We want to simply see what we see and make a judgment call. But the real opportunity is always to return to us. And I had an experience this week that really drove something home for me. So I'll just say one of the things that I feel strongly about is that we are not going to successfully navigate the larger issues here, and not just issues, but the larger dynamics that have to do with honoring one another and meeting one another and seeing one another and seeing ourselves and allowing ourselves to change our perspective and to realize the prioritization of people, ourselves included, over well, in this case, political agendas, but also over, career ambitions, also over, at times, what appears to be necessary protection of our anonymity or privacy or other things. And everyone has to make their own choice about all of this. And then, what forum to express in, how to express. And everyone of us has our own opinion about what's appropriate and what's not. That's the beauty of being human, and it's also what gets in our way a lot of times. But so last week, before this hearing occurred this week, the same person who all those years ago dismissed outright and was not a support to me in that circumstance, was asking me what I thought about all the things in the news. Well, I don't watch a lot, so I wasn't really up to speed on all of the details or even the people at that point. But this individual, was pushing and asking me to voice my opinion. So I basically said that I would need to hear, and because I'm very visual, and I know when I'm in front of somebody or when I hear somebody, I can usually just make a better discern if there's, if it feels authentic. And I mean, I'm not the judge and jury anyway, but I was telling this person, I certainly can't draw a conclusion about motive or anything else until I see or hear, at the very least. And this person who had responded in that way all those years ago voiced their opinion that, why didn't this person report it 30 years ago, and why in the world come forth now, and the timing being suspect and whatever else. While, I may have some of those same questions at times in certain circumstances, what I said in this moment to this individual who had not even honored what I was saying, much less been there to assist me, was, that there are lots of reasons that it might not have been reported or shared 30 years ago. And I told this person that there were things that I had, to this date, not reported. And I wasn't actually even referring to what happened to me when I was 13 in the pool. I was in a public pool. A boy rushed at me, older boy, 17 or so, maybe 18. He could have been in college, I don't even know, but rushed at me, pummeled a fist into my chest, pushed me under the water, touched me under my bathing suit, ripped my bathing suit, and sexually assaulted me. And then I couldn't breathe, so when I came back up, finally, we were twisting in the water, and it came back up. One of my friends had seen me struggling and saw that something happened with this guy who was, by that point, zooming away. He was a very good swimmer, and zooming away, and then disappeared into the building where they sold snacks, and um, I guess there were bathrooms in there. But anyway, when that when that occurred for me, I had told this individual, and so I was telling them now that there were other things that I had not reported, and that there were a variety of reasons. And I've come a long way in terms of my own healing, and so in as much as possible have made peace with the facts of what happened, and who heard and who didn't hear, and doesn't mean I'm not still triggered by it or angered or saddened by it. I am, but in most cases, I feel that I've come a long way with that. And so I, simply said, I looked this person in the eye and said, there are, other things that I have not reported. And then I mentioned a couple reasons that people might not share the truth of what happened. And, this person's immediate response was, hey, we were at lunch. Hey, this is a great salad. And then, okay, well, let's change the subject without with a complete ignoring what I had just said. So I've been thinking about that, the personal dynamics around a person who has been through an experience in this human reality that was damaging or hurtful or threatening, or put them or created terror or fear, or put them in a position of being abused, and then where there wasn't the support, emotional, physical, all kinds of things like that was forthcoming. And I've been thinking about circumstances like that, and there are so many stories I know personally like that. And so what I first want to say is this: if we first of all, this happens to men and women, but as mothers and daughters, sisters and brothers, fathers, and every other kind of family relationships cannot meet one another and friend to friend, because so often when those of us who have lived through something like this have spoken, it's very rare that someone is able to simply receive and be present to that without jumping into analysis and picking it apart, and or questioning us. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? It's natural. It's a human tendency, and I'm sure that I have done that as well. And I'm so sorry if there is anyone that ever watches this or that knows me where I have done that, because that is often more damaging or equally damaging to the initial experience. So I feel that it's very important for us here, number one, to return to the whole of who we are, and to allow ourselves the space and to meet ourselves with grace on the journey. And I'm speaking to those who have lived through something like I'm describing, and I'm speaking also to those who have not and just don't understand at all. I have close friends, for example, who have posted things like, one said, there is no possible way that, it was speaking about Dr. Ford's testimony, that she would not remember how she got there or how she got home. Well, I can tell you that I have made a huge energetic and financial and time investment in my healing journey, and I am 53 years old, and I have things going back, as I mentioned, until when I was 3. And there are experiences, partially the ones I mentioned, but not. I do remember some of the details more with those incidents, especially the 13-year-old one. But when I was a little older, when I was in my 20s, and even when I was in, I guess I was around 30, 31, 32, that when things happened that were not even as graphic or they didn't qualify as sexual assault. Let's just put it that way. But those things happened to me, and they were the same sort of experience on more of an emotional or mental level, or psychological even. Because there are ways that we sometimes unknowingly, but often knowingly, bring harm to one another by our participation in and or our again, it's usually driven by our own agenda, our own desire, and our own motive to sometimes, you know, take care of our own life, meaning, ambition, success, perceived threat to our well-being, or our family's well-being, or our ability to earn money or thrive, or have the space we need, or whatever it might be. And so there have been instances in my own life that I absolutely do not remember details to this day, after enormous and enormous healing around those things. And so it's important that we not, just because we can't imagine having that experience, that we not judge other people and say that it's not possible. That's simply not the case. Back to the personal relationships. Okay, so actually let me continue on that. So I had several other instances where I saw or overheard things that implied that there's sort of a time limit on when you can talk about something. And I want to be careful here, because I actually do, I do think that there are, this is a complicated issue. Okay, so let me just say this. I'm not talking at all about the political process or the particulars of the case that has been so public. But what I do want to say is, some people have implied that there's sort of a time limit where if you don't speak up by X, Y, Z, and I've seen as recently as yesterday somebody saying essentially the next day, like, that if you haven't done that, then it didn't happen. The end. And well, I'm not willing to live in a world like that anymore. I hope you're not either, because we all need to meet one another with grace and compassion. And so many, particularly children, have been conditioned to believe that they are not allowed to speak, that they must remain silent, that their voice doesn't matter, that sometimes there are messages that, it's just what happens to people who live in this place, or who are this color of skin, or who are female, or who, whatever else. That's another thing that is really, I see happening here. There's such a tendency to revert back to these traditional kind of conditioned definitions and descriptors that have been put around what it means to be in a male body, what it means to be in a female body. And those are not helpful. And I think, by and large, that what I have seen anyway, and felt myself, is that there is an opening and a realization that what wounds one other individual wounds us all. And I spoke very passionately about that in an earlier video I made Thursday night, but it was just so long. It was like over 2 hours, and I felt like I couldn't share that. It was a little bit, it was a little too long and too much. And so I'm gonna just kind of come to a close here in a sec. But a couple of suggestions that I have personally for anyone who has been has felt re-traumatized or re-victimized, or in any way triggered, which is almost all of us who have ever been through anything like this. But also, I would say equally, I have known many lovely, beautiful souls who are in male bodies, and some of whom have experienced similar traumas, and some of whom are able to see um, that there are long-held ways of presenting oneself traditionally in this society and in this world that we live in as what it means to be, male or masculine, and what it means to be female or feminine, and even when someone is maintaining those conditioned aspects, it can be very second nature almost to point out any deviation from that, and then to latch onto that. But I have seen so many people and men who, while they may not use the most helpful, they may not use the most helpful phrasing or know how to articulate. They are making an effort to listen. A couple of examples. I was telling one male that about my experience when I was 13 and not receiving the help that I needed at that time, and not being believed, and essentially me then believing what this person told me, that I must be making stuff up, and essentially I was a liar and not didn't have the capacity for honesty and integrity, and so for many years that followed me. But I was telling this man about this, and he was listening very kindly and being very compassionate, and then said, so I'm hearing that you wish there had been some validation. And I know that his heart was absolutely in the right place, but no, validation is not what I needed. I think anyone who's been through an experience like that understands that it's not about validation. It's about human decency. It's about compassion. It's about love. It's about the ability to rise above our own internal and external shame and ways of moving through life that are essentially prompted from a place of survival, fear, control, manipulation, even when it's very subtle. And even when it's coming from a place of wanting to protect the self from any further disruptions to the inner world. And so another case, a friend said, who was such a dear soul, but said something to the effect of, so we just need to have a big party and listen to all you women. And no, that's not exactly it either. First of all, it's not about having a party. And second of all, it is about listening and meeting one another with honor and respect and dignity. But it's not a one-time thing. It's not just about telling our stories or what happened. For me, it's not anyway. I mean, it may be about that for some people. I'm not saying it's not for some people, but for me, it's absolutely not about that. For me, it's about a deepening of our experience of life and a life more abundant, and why we have come to be here in this time, because we are on a journey together, you and me and all of us. We are on a journey, and it is the experience of life. And the more fully we can be present to one another and authentically connect heart to heart, soul to soul, the better our experience is going to get. And, I truly believe that, well, I know that's the trajectory that I'm choosing. And I believe that more and more of us see that and want to create that sort of a world. So I think I'm right at 30 minutes. I think I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. I do want to say that I just encourage anyone who has had an experience this week of, feeling raw or triggered, and I don't think we're done. I think there's more. Well, seriously, obviously there's more with the public hearings and what happens with the particular nomination and things like that. But remember, that it's about creating your life from the inside out. It was, a long time ago that was the slogan of my business. I think about 14 years ago. But it's never been truer. It's about creating things from the inside out. And so to creating the conditions of inner stability for ourselves, again, whoever you are, whatever you've experienced, whatever you're angry about, whatever you're sad about, whatever hurts your heart, or wherever you have been misunderstood, or your actions have been misinterpreted, or wherever someone persists in thinking a certain thing about you that is not wholly true, and is in some cases blatantly false. But in any case, whatever that is for you, whatever body you're in, or whatever your political persuasion, or what side of the aisle you sit on, or what kind of life you lead, you matter. You matter, and what matters most is that you return to the whole of who you are, your essential self, your essential journey, and your essential truth, the light, the life, and the love that you are at your core. Much love to you guys. Bye-bye.